Welcome back to Talk a Good Game, a show all about, you guessed it, good games. I'm your host, Andrew Wolf. Joining me today, game director and co-founder of UK-based Kaizen Game Works, the studio behind Paradise Killer and more recently, Promise Mascot Agency, Oli Clarke Smith. Thanks so much for being here. I'm super pumped to talk to you about Promise Mascot Agency. I played it when it first came out, when it released in, what was that, April 2025?
Yeah, back in April, yeah.
I fell in love with it, got super addicted to it, and I'm so glad we were able to get this call scheduled and chat about it some more. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, are you coming out of the UK summers over there?
Yes,
pretty hot.
It's finally started cooling down, and I know like the numbers that we get over here are not what the rest of the world get, but the humidity here is horrible, and our houses are bad with heat.
I feel you. Yeah, I'm here in Seattle, and I think a lot of people don't understand. I think, oh, it's just drizzly and rainy in Seattle, but yeah, it gets pretty warm during the summer, and I think like most people, luckily I have AC here, but most people in the state don't, and so when it reaches 100 or whatever that is in Celsius, it's pretty brutal. So I feel for you, but I'm glad it's starting to cool down. I'd love to start off talking about Promise Mascot Agency. I know we've got a couple other games that you wanted to mention before we wrap things up, but I'd love to start out with Promise Mascot Agency. Can you tell me about your role at Kaizen Game Works?
Yeah, so I'm one of the co-founders. I co-founded it with our technical director, Phil, back in 2018. We used to go to school together, and we're in a punk band together. And we went our separate ways with our career, but then we wanted to we both ended up in games, but we wanted to do our own thing. So we formed the company. We did Paradise Killer. And then during Paradise Killer, our new art director, Rachel, came to us with an idea for Promise Mascot Agency, which in her original concept, it was like a 2D, Kairosoft style game, like game dev story, that kind of thing. But we didn't feel comfortable. Like, we knew that our experience with doing Paradise Killer meant that, when we were pitching for funding for PMA, we knew that we would have to go bigger than a 2D game, because I think those games have the opportunity to make a lot of money for a studio if they hit right. Mm-hmm. But we felt like doing like an open world RPG, a ton more work, like nightmarishly difficult project for a very small team. But that game has a slightly wider appeal. So we pushed ahead and made the pitch into a 3D open world, and Rachel had also done a portfolio piece where she modelled a Japanese K-truck out of the Japanese countryside, and that got me thinking, like, why don't we make a game where you do that, where you drive around Japan and also do this kind of management stuff. So that's how Promise Mascot Agency was born. And for anyone that doesn't know, Promise Mascot Agency is obviously the best game released this year, but it is also a open world mascot management crime drama, and that is to say that you explore an open world, and your job is to turn around the fortunes of a failed mascot agency in Japan, and you have to run that business by recruiting mascots and sending them out to work. In order to pay back a 12 billion yen debt that happened at the beginning of the game after your character Michi, a Yakuza lieutenant, messes up a big underworld deal between two Yakuza families. And he's supposed to be dead. He's exiled out by his matriarch to Kasamachi, a cursed town on the coast of Japan. And he has to recruit these mascots, send them out to work, but also help them find their way in life. They all have, in our game, the mascots are not people in costumes. They're living creature people. They all have their own dreams and aspirations and problems in life. So you spend a lot of time helping them with their problems, so that you can build this newfound family and kind of rise up against the conspiracy and the curse that has seen you exiled out to this town. So, a lot going on. Very difficult to sum up in one sentence.
I'm so glad. It seems like you've really got that down. But even though you've really got it down, it was like starting out like, Okay, where do I begin? Because every time somebody asks me about the game, it's like I've started this little bit actually, where every time I tell somebody about the game, I tell them it's a different genre. So like first I tell them it's it's a management sim, and then the next person they ask me, I'm like, oh, it's a car drifting like racing around the Japanese countryside, and it's like how many times can I go through this to like explain it as a different sort of genre, and it's actually been pretty funny. And but I think you've got a great explanation of the game there. You've really gotten it down. I assume it's taken you a couple of years to really
Yeah,
nail
it
that.
has. It's been one of the real problems with kind of marketing and selling the game,
Mm-hmm.
because like our strap line when we first started marketing it was open world mascot management crime drama, and like to me that like sets off like hearing that as a player, or someone viewing the trailer or whatever. Like I imagined just like kind of all of the excitement that would set off. You know, when you hear a game, like when you read like tactical espionage action on the front of Metal Gear Solid, it's like, well,
Yeah.
that's so evocative, right?
Yeah.
Like you kind of know what that game is, but you kind of don't, and it draws you in. But I think that it just confused a lot of people, because people are so overwhelmed with the amount of games that are out there,
Mm-hmm.
and without a very clear, hook. You know, we didn't even mention the kind of light card battling aspect of the
Yeah.
game, and like it's got so many things in it that it became very hard to distill down to like a nice like elevator pitch to
Mm-hmm.
be able to sell people on. And that really kind of hindered us until we got the demo out there and people could see what was
Yeah.
going on with it.
Yeah, I think I recorded an episode with Celia Schilling over at Yacht Club Games earlier this year, and she's the one that actually turned me on to it. It was her answer to like, what's an upcoming game that you're super excited about and looking forward to. And I think it was like right around the time the demo, or maybe it was, I don't remember. It was before release, but she struggled to explain it a little bit. But it was like it looks unhinged, but also like super cute and sweet and touching. And she nailed it. And that was before the game came out, because it really has impressed me in its ability to be like goofy and funny, but also like really touching in a lot of very unexpected ways. And so I've just been really impressed by the game overall. But there's a couple things I want to touch on that from things you said. One, as a small studio, how do you balance like coming up and releasing a game where it's like, okay, we need to have a certain level of mass appeal so that we can sell enough to stay employed and keep making games, but also like we don't want to necessarily, you don't want to sell out and make something that's like, I don't know. It's hard to say that sell out because there's no guaranteed money in the industry, of course, especially right now. But how do you balance that as a small studio?
The way we approached our first game, Paradise Killer, which is a open world murder mystery, it's set on a very strange island. It's kind of like it blends a lot of things with like it has some Lovecraftian stuff, and it's got like very high fashion characters. It's also got humor. It's got like kind of some hints of grotesque violence, but then it takes place on this kind of like sunny island. So there's a lot of contrast and again different elements in that. And the way we started making that was like we did that, Phil and I, mostly off our own savings, and we got a publisher halfway through that helped us get it over the finish line with some funding. But the way we approached it was like, this might be our only chance to make a game. So we need to put in, we just need to go for it. We need to put in what we want to put in, and we need to kind of like just dump our brains out into this game. And we approached the similar thing with Promise, in that we knew that we wanted it to have a chance of success. So making it, open world RPG kind of thing is immediately appealing. I think when you get down to it, like there's a lot of different genres of games, but one of the things that people always come back to is manipulating a character in 3D space. Is like that's whatever type of games I like. I like games often where you are, there is that level of exploration and hanging out in a world. But then we were fortunate enough to get funding from people at Kowloon Knights, and I think they had a lot of confidence in us. Our funding, our budget was relatively low compared to a lot of the games they fund, so I think they were happy to kind of just take a chance and some of the people there, CEO Alexi, really liked Paradise Killer, so he's like, yeah, you guys can go for it, and they give you a lot of space. The way they work with the Kowloon funding is that they give you your money, and then you make your game, and any help they can give you, they will give you that, but they're not dictating anything about it. And
so they're not a
they have
publisher.
The Kowloon don't publish. We have to self-publish, and but they are just like, just do what you want, which is really cool because it allows us, because we don't want to make like a realistic game. We don't want to make kind of like a mass appeal game. We don't want to make like a high production value game. I've worked on those kinds of games before, and they're not very much fun. So we want to just put in a load of cool stuff that we like and that we think that people will like. And so long as we can bring it together into a cohesive package, like anything goes. And because we don't want to be too serious, we like surprising and being silly with the players, that it allowed us the space to just put in, especially because at the beginning, that Kowloon came to us and said, we've got an opportunity to work with Ikumi Nakamura. Would you like it? I'm like, yes, of course. And I think there's two different versions of Promise Mascot Agency. There's something that would be slightly more traditional, where the mascots are quite cute. It's a bit more wholesome. It's a bit less dark and grim. But that isn't what you get when you put Kaizen and Ikumi Nakamura together. And we've got this weird kind of, some of our mascots are quite grotesque. Some of the story is quite dark. There's some, fairly adult humor in it. And we get quite a unique game. And I think, like, Bill and I grew up playing a lot of Dreamcast and PS2 games, and Rachel grew up playing a lot of kind of PC games where there were more types of silliness and fun to be had in games, and so I definitely looked to those about, like, again, something like Metal Gear Solid. It's deadly serious about its themes, but then it's also got the silliness in there. And so we grew up playing games where they take themselves seriously, but also have a laugh at themselves. And that just, in our minds, just opens up the door to do so many other things. And I think part of it is that, like, not every big game is the opposite of that. But I have worked on games where we don't have fun. Like, we don't put the silliness in. We are trying to create drama, like narrative prestige TV drama. And it just feels suffocating. So I think, like, ours is a direct reaction to some of that.
Yeah, it seems like you took the punk band attitude, and, like, you were like, we're going to make video games that we want to make, and I think that there's something really special there. Yeah, and I was reading an interview that you did with RPG Site, and that you had mentioned that you live for 6 and 7 out of 10 PS2 games.
Oh yeah,
and I am fascinated by, I think PS2, especially as a generation of, like, that look and feel of a game, and even older, like Dreamcast as well. But I'm still, even on Switch, because what I play a lot, like 6 out of 7, like those mediocre rated games that could end up being your absolute favorite, right? But I love the vibes of the 6 out of 7 games, which is funny that you said that, because Promise Mascot Agency was very, very well received. I was saying, like, a lot. There were several 9 out of 10s in the 90s. PC Gamer gave it a 94. There was a lot of, I think it's got an 82 on CriticDB. I know Paradise Killer was also well received, but how does it feel to come up with, design, publish, and and release a game that you were able to decide, we want to make this, we want to have fun making this, and you did, and it was well received. How does that feel?
Incredibly validating of all the hard work that we did, but also of the people that believed in us. Because, like, the way we work as a studio is, like, all the people that we employ and work with, and contractors and stuff, are we find cool people that we trust, and we give them not very much direction, and then let them put something of themselves into the game. And so it was validating to know that, like, that's the right choice, and that the people that gave us the money that allowed us to do that basically said the same thing. Was like, you guys seem cool. Here's some money. Go and make something cool. And so it's like, I think this has been a really good critical success, and the way players have reacted to it has been amazing, and we're super happy with that. Has it sold Roblox numbers? Of course not. It hasn't. It did not turn into we're not doing poorly at all, but it was not a huge huge commercial success. But my feeling always at the start was, so long as we can make something good, that will continue opening doors in the future. Because if you make loads of money on something, yes, okay, that opens loads of doors as well. But if you are not, because today it's so competitive, if you can make something that is well reviewed and that people really fall in love with, because it's not just about reviews, it's about the kind of zeitgeist and the word of mouth. And like the games, all my favorite games are games that are like charming, that have some charm and some soul on them, that you can really latch onto, and you can really like grab hold of what's in there and feel something from them. And so my view is like, we have to make something that's good quality, but we also need to make something that people have that reaction to, because that will continue to keep the studio going. And post-release, we've been approached by a number of publishers that said, when you've got something new, come and talk to us. And that did not happen first time around after we released PK, because we were an unknown studio. It was a much smaller game. So like it's validating to see that like all this work, and I have to say, like, expertise that people on this team have built up, because I've been working in games now for like 20 years, and bunch of people on the team have been working in games for a long time, and it's nice to know that it's people like that. I haven't wasted my life. Like things that I've learned and the things that I hold dear have been enjoyed by other people.
Yeah, it's interesting that you've touched on a couple of times, like doing something a little different. There's so many games coming out now, but like making something a little bit different that people are going to sort of catch their attention, and that'll maybe be, I don't know, set them apart. I mean, there's so many games that are releasing every single day on Steam, and I know that there are those, a handful or some number of those games are going to be really good, and it's heartbreaking that that happens, and maybe that they don't get the attention they deserve. But so I think it's super fortunate. It sounds very fortunate that you're able to do what you want and get the attention. And it sounds like it's been successful enough that you're able to work on something new, hopefully. Earlier this year, I was in Japan, and I actually had the opportunity to interview Kazutaka Kodaka, who I'm sure you're familiar with. But for anybody listening, the man, the myth, the legend behind Danganronpa, and so many things. More recently, 100 Line Last Defense Academy, which is an amazing game. When I was speaking with him, I asked him, like, why 100 endings? And his answer was something along the lines of like, it was 100 endings because we had to come up with something that was different, because there's so many good games that are coming out now, and we needed to set ourselves apart and like really come out with something crazy. And so they decided on, let's do something with 100 endings. So I can only imagine like being a small studio and trying to come up with something that is going to sell well enough that you're able to continue doing what you love. And I think I really appreciate that. I think I am no longer employed in the corporate world. I'm working on Deku deals and Nintendo deal full time now, but I was at Amazon. I was an engineering manager there, and it was soul crushing. It was like, I'm going to work, I'm making decent money, right? But I'm not doing what I enjoy. And I think even if I'm not, able to travel the world every single day and like spend money, like I don't care. I think enjoying what I do and spending the very valuable time of my life of doing that, I think is worth so much money that you just can't really place a value on that. So I'm really happy to hear that at least it's been successful enough. It sounds like that you're able to.
Yeah, we are doing something new. It's going to require funding, but we've got the space to figure out what that is, because on PK, we signed the deal for PMA before PK came out because we didn't have any money to continue. So we were pitching during the process of finishing Paradise Killer. And this time we've got the space to carry on working. We've got 5 of us now working almost full time on a prototype for something new.
Awesome.
And then we will start pitching that in the new year, I think.
That's very exciting. So does that mean that PMA is content complete now? I know we're talking the beginning of September 2025, but in August you released a big content update with a bunch of new features and lots of new content. Does that mean PMA is content complete then?
Never say never. But we're actually working on a patch for PMA now to fix some bugs, but that's adding no new content. But one of the things that we're doing, this is very much in the weeds of game development, but we are prepping both PK and PMA to be worked on at a moment's notice. Right, so like if we wanted to put something in, like we're also doing a patch for Paradise Killer at the moment to fix a bunch of bugs in Paradise Killer because it's the 5-year anniversary of that this month, just been and gone. So we are fixing a bunch of bugs there, but like getting that out of archive and up and running again was a real trial. So we are making sure that we are equipped now to just spin up a machine that is ready to go and that we can just work on something. So if a new opportunity comes along, that we can jump on it and be like, yeah, we can do this. Because we've got, we in our last update, we did a bunch of collaborations with other indie games for our hero cards. And we want to be sure that if something cool comes up again like that we are just ready to go. If we have an idea for something we want to put in, if we want to tease our next game by releasing a patch, like we're able to do that because like we wanted to do that with PMA, but PK was not in a state to do that. So now we are preparing. So never say never. Also, the Switch 2, right? Everyone keeps asking us, "Are you doing a Switch 2 version?" If and when we get a dev kit, we need to assess whether we have the bandwidth to put out that version as well. So we need to be able to jump on that.
I've heard that a lot around the industry about Switch 2 dev kits are not available to anyone really, and it's been interesting watching the confirmed, because we've got scraping and a system set up to pull in every single game on the eShop and all the other platforms, of course. But it's been interesting to watch the Switch title IDs come in that start with 004, and this is very, very in the weeds, but 001 title ID is a Switch 1 game and a 004 title ID is a Switch 2 game, and it's been very, very interesting to see these 004 title IDs come in and know that like I don't think you can make that 004 title ID without a Switch 2 dev kit. So it's been interesting to see, which studios or which developers are, getting these Switch 2 versions ready. I can say it's not very many. I think, a lot of the big studios, Borderlands 4 and stuff is coming out, but there are a few indie developers, but it doesn't seem like many, which is a very interesting approach for Nintendo to take. And I do wonder if they're like trying to keep the Switch 2 specific eShop stuff more under control, because it did get a little bit out of control with releases of a bunch of garbage, like bundle spam and stuff like that. But I don't know. They're still coming on Switch 1, so.
I presume that is part of it, is that they want the Switch 2 in its first year to have this reputation of bangers like Mario Kart World and Bonanza, and then a bunch of like decent third-party stuff. But they need to do more than just restrict dev kits. They need to do proper curation, because it's the same on the PS5 store. It hurts, real devs like us, and that's not trying to be elitist, but like the slop devs out there are harming people that are making like genuinely good games, and what it requires is some manpower curation.
Yeah. So how was developing for, let's see, an all platform simultaneous release, or a simultaneous release across all platforms? How was that experience?
It's not too bad with Unreal. We're on Unreal 4. We're not on Unreal 5 because I don't know if that even supports the Switch. But when we signed the game, we expected it to take about 2 years. It ended up taking 4.5. So back then was like we were deep in like the Switch, like our projected release window was like deep in Switch territory. So we wanted to be there on Switch, but now I don't know if that is as important for a Switch version. So every platform was really easy to do generally, because Unreal just exports to every platform, and because we weren't doing it out of house. Like, I don't understand how some people do ports of smaller indie games. I get, but like some bigger stuff, like 3D stuff, I don't get how they manage to outsource that to porting studios, because like everything we do is so we know it, right? And I think the cost of us doing it would end up cheaper than giving it to a porting company for the amount of content that we've got in this game and how we've had to build the world. So we had to do a lot of effort to get it on Switch. Switch runs at 30 frames a second and has a decent resolution. It obviously does not look as nice as the PS5 or top-end PC version, but I think it's a pretty impressive version.
Yeah, especially because it's a 2013, like Kindle Fire tablet. Yeah. Basically, like it's very, very old hardware. So
yeah, I actually like playing that version because it reminds me of like high quality PS2 games, which is the highest compliment.
Yeah, definitely.
So like with that, it's difficult doing an open world game to get that running on Switch, and you have to reduce polygons in a lot of your 3D models. We have to be very aggressive on streaming. We have to bring down the draw distance. We have to do procedural. We do the foliage, like all the trees and bushes in the game, are handled by Unreal's procedural generation. So we can just dial down numbers on that. We bring in the fog to hide some of the draw distances. But that kind of thing is frustrating to do, like when you would rather be working on some other stuff, but it keeps you honest, right? Yeah. Like, because I built a lot of the world and did a lot of the modeling, and it kind of keeps you honest and forces you to make good stuff, and it also means that more players get to have it, because I think like this game has an appeal to people that aren't necessarily like PS5 gamers or Xbox players. They like. I wouldn't say our game is a cozy or a wholesome game, but it is, on the surface, it kind of skirts that territory, and it's not got combat in. It's not got any kind of real high pressure or stress, so it's quite a chill game to play. So I think like the Switch is some of the right audience for that.
Yeah, it very much has like the checkbox. There's something about like, okay, I want to collect every single piece of this, or like I accept this quest, and it's not just to go out and do one thing. It's go around the entire island, right, and like collect every, like hit. And it's very much, I don't know, I just found myself driving around and shooting Pinky, who is a severed Pinky mascot, like shooting Pinky from the truck and like hitting all the signs of the mayor. And sometimes I wouldn't even talk to people. I'll just drive around the island the whole time and finding stuff. So I very, very much feel that. The beginning of that, you had said that you thought it was going to be another 2 years, and ended up being 4.5, and I laughed because for anyone listening who has played the game, it's totally obvious why maybe it ballooned and snowballed. But if you haven't played the game, it's very much like, oh man, it's just very obvious that you had some ideas, and it seems like you just kept going and you wanted more and more and more.
Yeah, part of it is like the concept is much wider open than we initially realized. That it's like, we say it's an open world in a Japanese town. You go around, you recruit mascots, you speak to mascots, and you help townspeople. And like as soon as you start doing that, you realize, one, you need to add some more stuff to make the open world compelling. Then you need to add stuff to the story to make that compelling, but also to fulfill the promise of the concept. Like, you look at some games like the Yakuza games. Their concept is be a Yakuza minion, lieutenant, depending on the game, in kind of an open world part of Japan. And every one of those games succeeds in realizing the fullness of that concept. And our previous game, Paradise Killer, I think was a much smaller concept. So we just took that as like, oh, if that was like that, then we could do that again in 2 years. And we just realized just like how big this, how much expectation a player would have of this concept and what we would need to fulfill that concept. But because it was a hard game to make, because we kept having these milestones that kept moving, we kept saying, oh, it's going to be out in 6 months. But it would be like, well, damn, this is not where it needs to be. And then we would go and ask for the funding to push that back. And Kowloon were very good and said yes. But it meant that our game was always in a certain state of quality so that they could look at it and go, okay, they want some more time, which costs some money, but we can see that there is a level of quality that is being hit, and there is a level of we do try to be professional with how we handle kicking out builds to partners and having the game in a presentable state, and being very open and transparent with who we work with to show like, yeah, we do need a bit more time, and that's on us. But here's where the game is at now, and here is the document that says the A to B to C of how this money will be spent and what that will get.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm also imagining like when you gave me the sort of elevator pitch at the beginning of the call, like what the game is. I mean, you're building a management sim. Like it could just be a management sim game, right? Like there's portions of like if you cut out all the open world, I think it could be a management sim game. Like maybe not completely, but there's so many parts of that. Like it's also an open world game, and there's a whole quest system, and there's a whole storyline, and so it's interesting that I can't imagine trying to build feels like multiple different games inside one game.
Yeah, and none of those things were ever done right first time. It would have been if it would be so much easier if like we'd got stuff right, and you never do. So that's just the nature of it. But like that simulation got designed, built, torn apart, rebuilt, torn apart, rebuilt. The card battling stuff what took so many iterations to get right. We had a programmer working on the truck for nearly 4 years, and it was naivety as well. Like you just think that we'll be able to do it because Paradise Killer was definitely we set out to have like the DIY punk ethos on that of like just it won't be the highest fidelity game, but it will come together with this kind of DIY attitude and aesthetic, and that Promise Mascot Agency has some of that, but it is not. That wasn't enough for what that game needed to be. It needed to be of a higher quality, and we completely misjudged some of that, especially characters and stuff. That was a nightmare.
Some of these things you're saying, I keep thinking like Suda 51. Like it feels like it's like strong inspiration from some Suda 51 games. Was that part of the inspiration?
Yeah, I first played Killer 7. Was like, I've never seen anything like this before. But I bounced off it. But then I picked up No More Heroes on release on the Wii, and that was a real life changer. Like I fell in love with that game, and have since played everything he's made. And like they have that attitude at Grasshopper of putting in the stuff they like and then managing to bring it all together. Like some of those games, like especially the No More Heroes games, are quite disparate parts and themes sometimes, but they manage to bring it all together. And like some of the other games that he's made, like 25th Ward and stuff, you can see that he's got a bunch of things on his mind that he wants to get out. And I think this is similar to our games, where here's the concept, here's a bunch of stuff that's in our heads, let's get it into Unreal.
I love that. I love that, like knowing that, I mean, video games are art, right? And I think, I don't know, just enjoying that a person with a mind that works that way, like you can actually see like, oh, this is what they wanted people to see and play and experience, and I absolutely love that. Were there parts of the Promise Mascot Agency that you were like, I guess you and maybe the Kaizen Game Works team were mostly hands off on, like voice acting and things like that?
Yeah, the voice acting was pretty transformative to the quality of the game, but we were hands off on that because we didn't do Western voice acting. We just did Japanese since it's set in Japan. And we worked with an amazing localizer, Surumi-san, who longtime veteran of the games industry, and he just took it all on and put out auditions for some of the characters, and then just picked from casting tapes others. And then one day, just a Google Drive link was sent to me and said, "Here's the voice acting."
Wow.
and then we just hit the import button and transformed the game in a morning. So that was nice because we're such a small team and the game's so big that we have to be hands-on with almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it was such a massive relief to be able to just have him take that on. And he worked with a bunch of really cool people, because we're in the game set in Kyushu, he wanted to make sure that the dialect was correct. So he got in a dialect expert, and he worked with a really good voice recording studio, Zenerex, to just handle it all. And every file came back perfect, perfect mastering, perfect editing, and then we just wrote a tool to import it, and that was so wonderful.
Wow. So if I'm understanding it correctly, the story and the dialogue was all written in English, and then it was interpreted to Japanese, and then the Japanese. So did you keep the original English writing, or was that the Japanese then translated to English for subtitles?
The text that's in the game is all the English text. So yeah, I wrote it, and then it was translated into Japanese, and then that was recorded. And some changes were made, but those changes were reflected in both English and Japanese. And what was amazing is that the game is full of humor and full of kind of cultural jokes. Not what if I say references, we're not doing a Deadpool on this thing. It's not just calling out references for the lols. We are, but it just when anyone speaks, right? Whenever you have a conversation with people, there's always some kind of cultural touchstone in there,
right?
And jokes that only us in the West, with our use of English, will get compared to someone that doesn't speak English. Normally, when that happens in a game, the person who wrote it gets just reams and reams of questions from the translators. What does this mean? I don't understand this. Can you explain the reference? And we got so little back from the Japanese localizers. And because we were recommended Surumi-san as someone he used to be in a rock band, he used to mod Japanese race cars. So he's been in a bunch of different subcultures and has a slightly different, outlook, and kind of understands our vibe, I think, and can relate to what we're trying to do. There's slightly anarchic dialogue, and we got so few questions from him. There was part of me that was like, is this okay? But then everything I've been told by people that have read it, have played it, say it's really funny and really good, and people that can speak both languages have said it lives up to the English. So I'm just over the moon.
Yeah,
how well that went.
That's a very special talent, I think, in order to be able to do that. I was learning Mandarin a few years ago. I had a personal teacher and everything, and I think the hardest part, and my Mandarin is still very bad, but the hardest part was unless you were born in China and you grew up in China, there's so many things that you just will not understand. So many things. And my teacher, she was born in China. She didn't understand girl who cried wolf. That was just I don't know what that means. I don't understand why you would say that loud. So I think it's a really special talent to be able to do that. And so was making the game with English voice act or Japanese voice acting, was that something you decided on early on, or did that come later?
Yeah, well, no. So when we decided to do voice acting, I put my foot down and said we're doing Japanese as the primary voice because it's set in Japan. I play the Yakuza games in Japanese, so we are doing Japanese first and foremost. If we have the money, we can do Western. But I said what I want is, I was so impressed by the Ghost of Tsushima VO, where it was bilingual actors.
Yeah,
but that's a massive undertaking and a massive cost to be able to do that. And we've got so many characters and not enough budget. So we originally weren't going to have voice acting. And then Kowloon said to us, we really think you should do voice acting, and here's the money to make it happen. But we said, okay, but we're only going to do Japanese because, we could take a lot more money, but we don't think it's worth it. Like, let's spend it on having Japanese voice actors. And I think a lot of the people that that would have a problem with that, with only Japanese voice acting, weren't going to play our game anyway.
Right.
So it's like really like playing to the crowd almost.
Yeah. No, I think I'm the more and more you talk about Kowloon, as I'm more impressed by like their funding, but not being an overbearing publisher, but like not just funding, but also, hey, like you should, suggestions. It seems like they're really in touch with this space, this industry, but also like the game you were making in particular as well. I think that's really impressive.
Yeah, they're really great guys. I can't say enough good things about Alexi and Matt and Anlu and all the guys over there, because I went for a meeting with Alexi to show him the game and talk through some stuff when he was in London, and he was the one that said, like, I really think we need to have the mini game where you elect Pinky as mayor. Oh, damn it, I'm trying to ship this game. But of course you smile and say yes. Yeah. And then on the train back, I messaged the team and was like, right, we're doing an election mini game. I want to have a mock-up done by tomorrow. Yeah. And it was the right thing to do. But, it wasn't, like, so I've been in a situation with publishers on bigger games before where they say, this is what you're doing. We're already behind schedule. We already haven't got enough money. You can't have this other thing. And they say, it has to be done. Whereas the Kowloon guys were like, yeah, we think you should have this. Here's the money to do it. And they would play the builds. Early on, we didn't have a save game implemented for ages, and it's quite a long game. And so people would be leaving laptops on with the game running just to make sure that they could get through as much as possible when they had an opportunity to play it. So like that team over there really gets it, and they're part of Kepler. So you see like what that yields with Expedition, Rematch, and the games that Kepler are putting out.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. Well, we've talked about the game. We've talked about the voice acting. I think there's another piece of it that's like completes the puzzle for me, and it's an absolute banger, is the soundtrack. I was like, absolutely, I think one of my, like in my top 10 game soundtracks. It's awesome, especially if you have been to Japan. I mean, it's not like this is only a soundtrack that people that have been in Japan will enjoy, but like if you've been to Japan, if you love Japan, if you love like Japanese culture, anything like that, especially, it adds to the experience. But how was getting the soundtrack done and making sure that it fit with the vibes of the game?
So that was something that we had a lot of hands-on with, but was almost completely pain-free because of the people that we worked with. So after we released Paradise Killer, we got chatting to the lead composer of Promise Mascot Agency, Alpha Chrome Yayo, just on Twitter, and we really liked his stuff. And so when it came time to do PMA, we reached out to him and said, would you like to do this? And he is a massive talent, and he is someone that I think there's like two different types of like kind of creative. Is one that produces something very occasionally and spends ages kind of futzing with it and gets really good through that process. And there's someone like Alpha who puts out maybe like 3 or 4 albums a year, and they all bang because he's like he gets so good just by like the method of creating over and over and over again. And so he would just churn out music for us. And I think we got something like 25, 26 tracks out of him for this, which is a big number. And then he also did a bunch of sound design for the game. And then partway through the game, we wanted to get a Japanese composer on, and an acquaintance out in Japan managed to hook us up with Ryo Koike, who they knew from previous jobs. But Ryo had worked on the Dead or Alive and Ninja Gaiden games. He'd worked at Grasshopper on Lollipop Chainsaw, and underrated banger Killer is Dead, and then on the Resident Evil remakes at Capcom. And so it was great because he got very close, like very authentic. Like we gave him like the loosest spec and said, for like, we want this music to play in the shopping street. So it's the kind of music that you would hear over the speaker system at the shopping street. And then that's what he produced perfectly. And then with ACY, we did a few specific themes, like Shiori's theme, the metal theme. We said, we want this specific character theme, but a lot of it was like, we need something for the mysterious story scenes. We need something for the dramatic story scenes. We need X number of tracks for when you're just driving around the Japanese countryside, but there's like an occult vibe. And so we just gave them a lot of themes. Like Rachel built a pack of like inspiration, but I think some of that wasn't necessarily needed because he just got it. Like he just looked at what we were doing and just understood, because he's a big, like us, big fan of like the 70s, 80s, 90s Japanese media and look and sound. And he's also, into all the right games to be working with us. So that was, there was a lot of back and forth with him just because it's nice working with him. But that was pain-free. He delivered a bunch of tracks. I slotted them in. They were all perfectly mastered, and we got a really good vinyl and cassette out of it. We worked with Jose Salot on the artwork for that, and I think he has a very kind of 90s anime look to his art, and so mixed with our music, I think it creates a really nice package.
Yeah, it's the vinyl is. I need to pick it up, and I'm going to be going to Japan again in like a month. I leave in a month for my honeymoon, and I'm very excited. I want to play the soundtrack. We're going to rent a car, drive through the countryside, play the PMA soundtrack as we're driving through. Like, really got to lock in to the vibe. So I'm pumped for that.
It's funny you should say that. First of all, congratulations. Second,
thank you.
Part of the inspiration for the game was a YouTube channel that it's called Retro Vending Machine, maybe, but it is a guy that lives out in Japan, Japanese guy, who drives around like rural areas of Japan to the absolute nowhere out in the sticks to have vending machine food. Like the hot food you get from vending machines. And so like the video, half of it is the video of the video is like a dash cam with like jazz that he's composed over the top of it, and then it's him just chatting with people that service these vending machines. And so that was part of the thing, is that we want to be able to have a game where you are driving through the Japanese countryside in a truck, listening to kind of creepy jazz, like kind of like jazz that you would expect from a town suffering from an occult curse, but it's also in the middle of summer,
Yeah. Oh, I think absolutely nailed the vibes. I can't say enough good things about this game. I'll see if I can find or get a link from you for that YouTube channel. I'll drop it in the show notes so people can check it out. And I'm so pumped that we got to talk about Promise Mascot Agency. So you did mention the vinyl and cassette though. Physical release, now that it's content complete, you're working on patches. Is there physical release
I can neither
coming?
confirm or deny, but I would stay tuned to
very exciting
social media.
Yeah, very excited. Cool. Well, looking forward to that. I would like to transition a little bit into some other games. We've talked about a bunch of other games during this conversation about Promise Mascot Agency, but I do want to go through a couple of these games before we wrap things up. A game you love right now that you feel is underrated is a question I asked you, and your answer is a game I've never heard of, which I love. I don't want to say the name wrong. Is it Kinki, Spiritual Affairs Bureau?
Yeah, that is. It is a third-person, over-the-shoulder shooter set in Japan, and I think it's made by like one developer out in Japan. So it's a Japanese indie game, but you play as a member of the Spiritual Affairs Bureau, who are like a tactical anti-ghost force. So you deal with troublesome spirits, ghosts, like like Sadako from The Ring, that kind of long-haired ghost. And the way you deal with them is with automatic assault weapons and shotguns, and it came out on Steam last year, and then it
Yeah, it looks like
recently got a console port, and I just think it's such a wonderful game because it is someone's vision, and like the tone is very kind of knowing. It's a very funny game, and so you go around these different environments, like a school, a graveyard, a shrine, shooting these ghosts, and sometimes the ghosts are running at you like zombies. Sometimes they are taking cover, and it's a cover shooter. There's a really good stealth level, like very open-ended stealth level. There's a decent driving level, but it is all of a certain quality, right? It is all one person making this game, so it's not the best controlling game you'll ever play. It's not the best performing game you'll ever play. It's not the tightest game you'll ever play, but the heart and soul are so there that it is, for me, it's one of those 7 out of 10s that becomes an 11 out of 10 because of the charm and the soul that it has. And there's like these really long cutscenes between missions and during missions where people are like philosophizing about government, like conspiracy and stuff. And it's like sits somewhere between Tom Clancy and Kojima, and it's just got this such a like unique style and flavor to it. I should shout out ACY Alpha Romeo, our composer, who turned me onto it, and yeah, it's a hell of a game, and no one knows about it. Like
it's only $10.
Yeah, and it just crapped out on console with almost no fanfare, and I think it does struggle with like some of the quality that people would expect. Like, I'm pretty glad that I've got one of those. What they're called, the Dual Sense. What's the expensive Dual Sense for PS5? The Edge, whatever it's called, because you can configure the dead zones. Like that game, like because they ported it from PC, it just took the mouse input. So like it's got like some of those quality of life things aren't quite there. But if you're cool enough to look past that, that game rules. And I've said it, and no one's going to believe me, especially people that play it. But that if I say that this is almost like a perfect game because it's 4 hours long, it's exceptionally well paced. It's got excellent variety. It's got a decent enough story. It's got set pieces. It's got humor, and so it's, you know, when people think about what's a perfect game, it's never a game like this. But I think for what it manages to achieve what it sets out to do, and it does it with a degree of confidence that you do not often see.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say that because the team, Michael and Scott, the two others on Deku Deal's team, we've been talking a lot about like Michael added a game to his list of favorite games, and it's like not necessarily a 5 out of 5, right? Like he has a lot of, you know, maybe some 3 out of 5 that he's rated games on his favorite games list, a ton of 4 out of 5s, and maybe not very many 5 out of 5s. Like a game that is your favorite or that you love, I don't think necessarily needs to be, you know, technically perfect in order to be, you know, very much enjoyed. And I think especially if people that grew up playing games go back and play some of the games that were maybe their favorite, they'll realize like, oh, this is like not technically really that good, but like whether it's you know, a combination of nostalgia, but also like it just kind of nails everything that it, you know, tried to do. I think there's a lot to be appreciated there. And you're right, like a 4.5 hour game, you know, it's $10 on Steam, $13 on Xbox and PS5, but looks like it does go on sale occasionally. I don't know, it's like I don't have enough 4 hour games in my life.
Yeah,
I need more 4 hour games.
Yeah, it's nice to just sit down and do it in a couple of sessions and just feel like you've seen someone's vision, and there's there was nothing extra, no side quests, there's no chaff. It's just, here's what I wanted to do, and I've made it.
Yeah, and the key art actually also looks like it could be a PS2 cover. So
yes,
I'm sensing a pattern here with games you like. Another question I asked you is the one game you're most looking forward to that isn't available right now is ROMEO is a Dead Man. And that is a Suda 51 game, is that right?
It's the new Grasshopper joint, new IP from them, and I'm really interested to see where Grasshopper is going, because there's been so many kind of trials and tribulations. Like they started off very small with the silver case and then grew a bit, or grew a substantial amount, I guess, to make Killer 7 and No More Heroes, and then they grew more to during the Shadows of the Damned and Lollipop Chainsaw era, where those three Xbox 360 games that they made, Shadows of the Damned, Lollipop Chainsaw, Killer is Dead, I think are all bangers. But that was a type of game that was falling out of fashion. And like a linear 6 to 8 hour game was, unless you were Call of Duty, it was not doing it unless you had a multiplayer mode on the side as well. And I don't think those games got the appreciation that they deserve. And then there was a big load of stuff that happened around Let It Die, and the team got very small again, and Travis Strikes Again, which was a cool, like, different look. And then No More Heroes 3, I think, struggled from a bit of overambition on the Switch, and so I'm very excited to see what new era Grasshopper looks like, because it's directed by Suda and Ren Yamazaki, who has been a long time Grasshopper collaborator and is a very talented designer and director. And I think they are going back to what they do, which is kind of like linear-ish third-person action with a lot of style. And I think the world is more appreciative of that nowadays. I think the world is ready to embrace what they do, because No More Heroes 3, the combat in that was the best they've ever done. And it had really fantastic combat, but then the open world was not, not where it could have been. And so I think by focusing in on what they know they can accomplish, and the trailer looks great, and I think they've got the freedom now. Like, there's a lot of good stories about like what EA would and wouldn't let them put into Shadows of the Damned, and knowing that, hopefully the limiters are being taken off, and there's the confidence and money there to let them do something good is really exciting.
Yeah, and I think they're self-publishing this one, so hopefully they've got a little more freedom.
Yeah, I hope so. And yeah, I just love those games and replaying them a bunch of times, because there's always achievements to go hunting for or whatever in these linear games. Like, I think that's a really nice pattern. Like, you play through a 6 to 8 hour game, and then you go back, you unlock some costumes, and you go back and play through it again to get the trophies you missed or whatever. And I think that's a really nice pattern of play that it's harder to get nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of Promise Mascot Agency, because I need to go back and get my grinding skill, and so I can start grinding on some rails. So, and then another game you wanted to mention before we wrap things up is Sorry We're Closed, and this is one that I had heard of, but hadn't had a chance to play. And again, I'm sensing still the pattern continues of what I think that you enjoy. Like, this one just looks like it is full to the brim with personality and style.
Yeah, this is Sorry We're Closed is a Silent Hill 2 like, but with an explosion of colour and queerness. And it's made by a team called A La Mode. The designer and artist C. Bedford did some work for us on Paradise Killer, and they were working in the games industry. And then we contacted them and said, can you do this work for us freelance? And they saw what we were doing, and that is what spurred them and their partner Tom to quit their jobs and do what we'd done, which is make a game that only they could make, and brimming with style. If you like that kind of Silent Hill 2 vibe or like game structure of, like, you explore a bit of a town and then you go into a quote unquote dungeon to complete like a level, and you do the kind of survival horror back and forth with keys and stuff and fight monsters. It does that exceptionally well. The music is great, produced by themselves, but also with a bunch of boss tracks. The bosses all have like this hip hop track produced by Okamura, who did some work for us on one of the Paradise Killer songs and also worked on No More Heroes 3. And the whole thing is just like stylish, exceptionally well made, and it just keeps going with like, something that we struggle a little bit with at Kaizen is like making a big enough deal of the gameplay at the end of the game. I'm always focused on like what that middle section is, like what is the middle 80% rather than the beginning 10 and the end 10. And Sorry We're Closed reminded me almost of like a Nintendo game where they're still introducing new cool level design mechanics right at the end of the game. And I was like, what are you people doing? Like, you're making the rest of us look bad. And then we had dinner with them recently, and they went through hell finishing that game because they would not leave anything out, and they wanted to put in everything they put in. And it was a killer to finish that, but they've achieved something absolutely wonderful. And it's out on PC and console, and I cannot recommend it enough. It's I'm really enjoying this this trend of people that enjoyed PS2 survival horrors making PS2 survival horror style games, but doing something new. Like there's Hollow Body, there's Crow Country,
yeah.
And
Holston is one that looks really, really interesting. Have you seen Holston?
I haven't seen that one.
It's like an isometric, but when you go to shoot a zombie or something, it goes down into first person. And so you shoot the zombie and then you like release and it pulls back up to isometric.
I think it's
really cool.
Yeah. Like that. This Signalis, Heartworm, like all these games are like it's interesting seeing just like the curve of like seeing what people grew up with. It's like the people that didn't grow up with playing 8-bit platformers, like the younger crowd that grew up on PS1, PS2 are making their indie games now, and the tools are at a place where they can make a game that would have taken 30 to 100 people in the past with only a handful of people.
Yeah.
So it's really impressive.
Yeah. And I love the aesthetics of Sorry We're Closed. Like to say that it looks like a PS2, Dreamcast sort of, it doesn't do it justice. And I think we're in a really special time. Like you said, the people that grew up playing those are able to make games now. And I think the thing that I tend to forget with my nostalgia brain is like PS2 games. Yeah, they had these sort of like square, that sort of look, but they weren't very detailed. There wasn't a ton of texture detail. But what I love is this, in 2025 and even in the 2020s, is you can have these games that are blocky, square sort of style, but there's so much detail in the textures and the look and the feel that it's like, I'm looking at screenshots of Sorry We're Closed and like, it's not a PS2 game, but it does give me the vibes of that sort of age. So I really appreciate we're in a time now where we can get that. So definitely looking forward to checking this out. And I did notice that at least their North American physical releases were put out by Serenity Forge, which I think you also worked with Serenity Forge.
Yeah, we worked with Serenity Forge on the Paradise Killer special editions, and they're great. They produce really nice sets.
Z and team over there this is an awesome group of people for sure. So that's cool to see because I'm a big physical collector. Of course, I'm looking forward to watching social media for Promise Mascot Agency physical. But when I look to pick up a game, I'm like, okay, Sorry We're Closed. Looks like there is a physical version. Okay, I'm going to have to put this on my wish list and see if I can pick it up on sale or something. So I'll keep an eye out on that for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I do want to give you a chance to, plug any socials anywhere people should watch for Promise Mascot Agency news or other news from you or Kaizen.
You can find us on everything: Bluesky, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Reddit. It's all Kaizen Game Works, at Kaizen Game Works on everything. You can wishlist and preferably buy our games on Steam and all the consoles. They always go on sale. We update socials quite regularly with any news and stuff, but also update Steam news posts and stuff. So if you are interested in news which I can neither confirm nor deny, then stay tuned and you should see something somewhere.
Yeah, I'll for sure be posted about it as well. So, and for all the games we talked about today, links to everything, the YouTube channel about crazy jazz driving through the Japanese country, everything, we'll have links to everything down in the description or the show notes. And thanks again, Oli Clarke Smith, Kaizen Game Works. It was such a pleasure talking to you. I'm super pumped to hopefully convince more people to play Promise Mascot Agency.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me and letting me chat nonsense for an hour or so. It's always fun to be able to talk about the game, especially now it's done, and look back on it.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Talk a Good Game. The show is produced by me, Andrew Wolf, in Seattle, Washington, with music by Plus Minus One and art by Sonny Ross. Find more good games, create a wish list, and build your video game collection on DecoDeals.com. Deco Deals Patreon supporters experience the site and mobile app ad-free. Join now at patreon.com/DecoDeals. The best way to support TAGG is by leaving a review, and you can suggest a game to be featured on a future episode by sending an email to tagg@decodeals.com.